Today's show was always going to be a busy one. The NFL is cutting down to 53-man rosters. The preseason is in the rear view. The Chiefs did a lot of interesting things in game 3. We've got some show news here and there. It was always going to be a lot. And then the earth-shattering announcement that we've all been waiting for. We all knew it was coming, a matter of when, not if. And then it happened. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Derrick Nnadi is once again a Kansas City Chief. And Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift got engaged. Good for them. Hello, welcome into Only Weird Games. Joshua Brisco, Seth Keysor, and Nate Taylor. Not just because of that little bit of news. We may have a little bit of a new audience today. Some people hearing us for the first time. And if that's the case, hey, thanks for being here. We're KC Sports Network, specifically the three of us, Only Weird Games. Seth Keysor, longtime film analyst and Chiefs expertise, flows from up there in his state of Minnesota. That guy, that's Nate Taylor of ESPN. Maybe you've heard of it. And I'm professional host and cat herder Joshua Brisco with my two lovely felines here. If you're new to KCSN in general, it is the #1 Chiefs podcast network on the internet. We've had 10 million downloads over the past 4 years, multiple shows, 10 or more than 10 hosts across the network, including just here on the Chiefs feed. If you need to find that, I'll tell you how. You've got this show with the three of us. You've got The Lab with Kent Swanson, Maddie Lane, and of course, Craig Stout. That football show with Tucker D. Franklin and Matt Verderam. If you're new to KCSN, maybe you're seeing this show, hearing this show in a different feed, check out the description for a link, or you can just search for KC Sports Network, wherever you get your podcasts. And we got one big feed with all the Chiefs shows, plus, of course, some great college coverage across the network as well. Fellas, are you in a mood to make a good first impression today? It truly may be the busiest show we've had in a calendar year.
It's an amazing moment for all of us. So thank you if you're watching, listening. And yes, Seth, I guess at some point we'll talk about, the football team. That's how much things have happened today. I will, there was a little moment in the Kingdom documentary, broadcasted on ESPN, as I'm sure many people know, where I described how I'll never forget, week 3 of the 2023 season. And yet I have another day that I'll never forget, where I was when the news happened and they acquired Derrick Nnadi yet again. I will never forget where I was. As Josh knows, and we can't even talk about this, so I'm just going to mention it and get out of the way. But as we all know, as we're approaching Cutdown Day, which is today. So this is,
a few hours ago.
Yeah, this is Sunday before the Tuesday. When teams are really trying to find out, hey, who's the best 53-man roster we can put together before we have to play someone in an important NFL game. I was with my son Hayden, who is 10, and I was watching him negotiate trading Pokemon cards at Collectathon in downtown Kansas City. And then I said, "Excuse me, good sir, excuse me, ma'am. I'm going to have to step away. Derrick Nnadi is a Chief again."
Seth, again, the news that's just been simply rolling in. How are you feeling right now? Right now as we speak, by the way, this is a show live on YouTube originally, and then it hits the podcasting forums in the way that it does. We are nearly 2 full hours past the NFL cutdown deadline, and we have about half of the Chiefs cuts at this point. So we'll circle back on that later in the show.
It's going to be a busy one. It's going to be a busy day. We've got a lot to talk about in terms of what we're really looking at for Patrick Mahomes this season. I know you guys had me grind through 15 games worth of game film and chart every snap because you guys are jerks.
Yes.
I'm ready to talk that. I'm ready to talk about every single deep ball shot they took in preseason week 3. I'm ready to talk about the 53-man roster if they'll ever release it to us, for the love of every year this happens.
Every year.
I'm ready to talk about Travis Kelce, kind of vindicating me last year on my soft take that, hey, Maybe he doesn't look quite the way he did in previous years. And then Travis Kelce just basically has been like, yeah, I had a lot of opportunities and I'm going to maybe go back to what worked for me the first, 12 or 11 years of my career before last year with my offseason regimen. I'm just going to add that into one of the many, many times that I was right about something, which is just my favorite kind of content, right? I've been saying for a long time.
It's
So
feeling to me like we're not going to get through today's rundown if I start
At
giving you
all.
all the time Seth's been wrong, or really even just let Seth keep talking. We probably won't get all the way down the
A
rundown.
smidge.
So.
He's been right a smidge a couple times. He's been right.
The key is to really hammer those few times, and then it's just
Yes.
and then just pretend that you didn't get stuff wrong. That's what we do, give or take. No,
I asked Seth if he was ready to make a first impression. He was like, I was right when I said last year Travis Kelce looked a little chubby. That's
not chubby. He just wasn't moving the same way. And we all saw it, and he looks like he's back to moving the same way, but I know that's number 2 on the cutdown, or on the whatever we call it, breakdown?
Rundown.
Countdown?
Speaking of guys who aren't moving the way they used to, I'll go ahead and lead us into it, Seth, because we need to get you on a snap count. Hachi machi. Let's start with a brief look back at the final game of the Chiefs preseason. It was a little bit of a diversion from the norm. The starters played in week 3, and they played quite a bit. We got 3 full drives of Patrick Mahomes in the first team offense. And I got to tell you, man, this might sound stupid. I forgot how much more fun it is when Patrick Mahomes plays, because I really can get riled up about the 50 to 80th spots on the roster. We've done real shows about those players, and they're fun and worthwhile. But then Patrick Mahomes goes out there, just pew, pew. Tyquan Thornton's back, by the way. And oh yeah, that's why we love this sport. And it's been kind of an interesting couple of months, narratively speaking. I can't remember who said this in particular, and so I'm hopefully not throwing anybody under the bus. But I've seen the takes range from, Patrick Mahomes is still great. He just didn't have a very good year last year, all the way to the argument evolving of even if Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback of this era, he's not the best quarterback of football right now. And it's just kind of these weird evolving stick moving arguments, where this show's pretty unanimous on Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. There are some really excellent quarterbacks in the National Football League right now, but Patrick Mahomes has been Patrick Mahomes for long enough for him to become boring if you don't root for him every single week, as I suppose. Not to me personally. It seems like that's what's going on with some people. And now that we're in this spot where the offensive line looks different, the wide receiver weapons right now are healthier than they were last year. Nate, you can even take us back to training camp first. It sounded like Patrick Mahomes, for the second consecutive year, was working on the deep ball in training camp. But this year in particular, I think I got more texts from you about how dang good Patrick Mahomes looked at every turn up there in St. Joe.
Yes, as Rachel says in the comments, oh, those glorious deep balls. Now, she was one of the many fans who was at training camp, in St. Joseph. And so one of the more interesting things about training camp is not just the fact that they were throwing the ball deep, fellas. It was the fact that he had Xavier Worthy in year 2. He had Hollywood Bryce healthy and recovered from the knee injury. As we've said before, Tyquan Thornton was one of the biggest revelations of training camp. So he was throwing to guys who knew exactly how he wanted them to run those deep routes, what the angles were that he wanted them to take against the defense in certain coverages. And then we've seen this before, and I know we're going to maybe mention it later on about how interesting and maybe serving a purpose the 2022 season does for this season. But it's clear to me that Patrick Mahomes is incredibly motivated and a more assured leader of himself than he was 3 years ago. And so if you still have top-end talent, if you're still in the prime of your career, if you're healthy, which I think was a key distinction of training camp, he's fully healthy. He did not have to have a major procedure in the offseason. He got the ability to train shortly after the Super Bowl, and now everyone's healthy alongside him. Travis Kelce, of course, has done a great job himself, in terms of getting into a better fitness for this upcoming season. So it's fascinating to me, and I remember writing this, guys, that, I think Patrick described it really well, and I know Seth's going to mention it later on, just about how abnormal, that's the word Patrick used, how abnormal last season was for himself and the rest of the offense. And then you go, okay, I mean, that was a really good day of practice. I said it earlier in training camp, hey, the price of admission, which is free in St. Joseph, is just make the trip to come see Patrick Mahomes. And then from the moment I said that, he only got better and better and better in training camp. And it's incredible that they made sure in a preseason finale game, just for Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter, the two most prominent coaches for the Los Angeles Chargers, hey, we want you to look at some of these deep route concepts. And it's not Xavier Worthy. It's not Hollywood Brown. It's not even Rashee Rice. We're throwing 9 routes to Tyquan Thornton, who caught the ball as if he was doing it all of the last month. And you know what, kids? He has been doing it all the last month. What Friday's game told us was training camp, there's legitimacy to training camp. We all know that. But you could physically see, hey, you know what? I'm improvising. I'm out of the pocket. I got time to do cool bleep. You know what? I don't care that Juju's smothered. You know where I'm going to throw it? Right in his chest. And that play gets, I don't even think, discussed nearly enough. Guys, he's throwing off platform. He's out of the pocket. He's moving in the opposite direction of where the ball is going. And it is perfectly placed to Juju Smith-Schuster to catch the ball in a contested manner. Does not put the ball in danger, but clearly gives his receiver a chance to make the catch. So if you're looking for a motivated, highly skilled, in real connection with his receivers, man, this is the year where, at least as of right now, everything is falling into place for Patrick Mahomes.
Seth, I wanted to set you up for the most recent thing first, and then circle back for a longer look in a moment. But you've already reviewed the tape from preseason week 3, and you've written about Tyquan Thornton a couple of times now, and what that might do for the offense. With all of that in the can there from what Nate just laid out with the preseason that we've now seen, project ahead a little bit for me, or what it was that was missing in the recent past. Because I've got a big question for you about Patrick Mahomes last year, but first on just what we've just seen this last few weeks.
Absolutely. I think what we saw in the preseason game and the reason they were able to do some of that stuff actually colors the discussion of what happened next year and what you can project forward for this year. So here's something that I would just note in this last preseason game, which again is just preseason against a pretty mid defense, but it's against their starters. We'll start off. It wasn't just the fact that they kept throwing the ball down the field. It's that they did it in a variety of ways, from a variety of looks, and not just in 3rd and long, gotta have it situations, but on 1st and 10, on 2nd and 8, or whatever it was. They were actually looking to do it at times where you can utilize play action effectively, which is a big deal when you're trying to set certain things up. But we'll talk about the Tyquan Thornton. I think it was a 58-yard game. It was against a pretty basic single high coverage, single high safety, man coverage across the board. One of the lies that people still believe about the Chiefs currently is that teams play a ton of quarters or variants of 2 high shells against them. That stopped about midway through 2023 because teams stopped respecting the deep ball in Kansas City for a variety of reasons. And we'll talk about that when talking about what happened in previous years. Their teams have been playing a lot more, not just like single high safety, because single high, but like variants of cover 3, basically middle field closed, right? You got one safety in the middle, you got a corner on each side of the field. That's middle field closed versus middle field open with a safety on each side of the field. It's generally harder to throw the ball deep against middle field open because you've got 2 safeties back there. Very simple. Middle field closed, whether it's cover 3, single high, whatever, a safety has a hard time getting to the boundary unless he's immediately covering that, right? You have to, if you're like a 9 route to Tyquan Thornton, if that's what you're going to cover as a single high safety or a cover 3 safety, you got to commit to it immediately at the snap and get over there. Teams have been playing a lot of that against the Chiefs, and the Chiefs could not make them pay for it last year. We've talked in previous weeks about how they had virtually no explosive plays. They would go multiple games without a deep ball falling complete. There were a bunch of issues that led to that, and we'll talk about that. But what I love about this is they basically run a route combination that involves a deep crosser for Xavier Worthy on the same side of the field as Tyquan Thornton coming out of the left side of the formation. So Worthy's in the slot. Thornton's on the boundary. Thornton's running a 9 route, just a go down the field. Worthy's running a deep crosser. And then from the right side of the field, Rashee Rice is running more of a shallow crosser. Now, the advantage a defense has when they play single high safety with man coverage across the board is that you are able to drop a few guys into shallow zones or intermediate zones while spying the quarterback. So if your guys can stick with people, it's the best of all worlds. You protect against scrambling, you protect against some of those shallow shots, and that's all the Chiefs could do last year. The problem is if you're covering guys that can run away from people, and I already see it in the comments, and there's time in the pocket. A deep crosser, even when it's being run by Xavier Worthy, needs time. And here's the big thing. When you've got a guy running from the slot, a deep crosser, and another guy running a go from the left side against a single high safety or cover 3, that safety has to decide what he is going to do.
Are you going to
follow the fastest man in the NFL? Because he is running away. Worthy,
yes.
And Worthy ran a great route. And yes. And so
yes.
He immediately starts to follow. And here's where the Chiefs had a problem last year. They didn't have someone on the boundary that could make them pay. And Mahomes on this play, the second that he sees that safety commit and goes towards Worthy, he hucks up a go to Thornton, who hauls it in, 58-yard gain. You don't need to hit 3 of those a game. You need to hit 1, maybe a game. And it changes everything about the way you can be defended. So that's just one of the looks. But they also, they went deep on, they had 3 tight ends on the field and went heavy and then under center play action, deep shot to Kelce. They take a deep shot on that was almost like a 2018 Kareem Hunt route to Rashard Smith.
It
basically a seam route from out of the backfield where he cooked the linebacker, then turned and looked for the ball and slowed down a little because that's what you do in college. But this is the pros. You keep running. And had he could have caught it still. It was just a tougher catch.
Yeah, right. He was within range of catching it. Yes.
It was a dart from Mahomes, but I guarantee you, Mahomes afterwards yelled the same thing he used to yell at McCole Hardman all the time. Finish. Keep going. The ball will be there. And that's a learning moment. He also ran, and whether you call it a Texas route or an angle route out of the backfield, where he just absolutely cooked the linebacker there. So they went downfield to Juju Smith-Schuster on that play Nate was just talking about. Something worth noting: Mahomes wasn't out of the pocket there because there was pressure. He was out of the pocket because the Bears were in zone. They covered zone well. The route combinations were more man coverage beaters, and so Mahomes will at times against zone coverage break the pocket to move defenders and give his guy some angles to try to get open. That's exactly what he did there. And that's one reason you can throw a more accurate ball, because you're not running for your life. You are intentionally moving, not sprinting, and you've got still a platform to throw from. They went deep there. They went deep on a back shoulder throw to Rashee Rice. They pushed the ball down the field in multiple ways from multiple formations with multiple down and distances. And that's what has me so excited about it, because they were able to get good looks from basically all of them. Now, is it going to be perfect? It's going to be way harder in week 1 against the Chargers because they're a better defense. But I labeled it as a warning shot to the NFL, saying this is what we're doing this year. And unlike past years, we've got the horses to do it.
And in the best part of that, and I know you know this too, Josh, the best part of that is, unlike earlier years under Andy Reid that we've all gotten accustomed to, they waited as long as possible to actually show you what Seth just said.
Yep.
We had Patrick throw one pass in the preseason opener. We saw that field and we saw the rain and said, get out of here in week 2 against Seattle. So there isn't a whole lot of tape other than just what they were wanting you to see. And again, wanting you to see, because if I'm Jim Harbaugh, if I'm Jesse Minter, the defensive coordinator for the Chargers, that's a lot to digest, knowing that that's the only look you got, and you basically from the end of that game had 2 weeks to say, okay, well, how do we how do we figure that out when we know it's only the short end of the pool? They have not yet. We got to swim on Friday in Sao Paulo, and dog, 3.5 feet was kind of a lot to look around.
That's a good analogy, Nate.
Thank you.
Seth, we may end up doing an even deeper dive into some of your numbers and further details of your annual Patrick Mahomes film review. We may end up doing that in a show or two, but you've reviewed a bunch of that film. You have done the charting through the regular season. And so I'm here to just to ask the question that I feel like people should have been asking earlier in the offseason. Maybe somebody should have found you earlier on to ask you that. Maybe I should have asked you this months ago. The thing within the discourse of all of this that has been sort of disappointing to me from like a national perspective is that you go, yeah, I mean, he didn't even have 4,000 yards last year. Year before, it was barely 4,000 yards, 26 and 27 touchdowns the last 2 years. I mean, call me when he has 5,040 again, then he can be back in the MVP conversation. Mm-hmm. Last year, I understand why this happened. He was nowhere near the serious MVP conversation, despite a 15-1 regular season record and taking this injury-riddled, largely non-functional version of the offense to that record, to the number 1 seed with a week extra to rest, and all the way to the Super Bowl. And then it went terribly in the Super Bowl. And then you go, well, yeah, I mean, Mahomes just wasn't even good last year. Go, man, I really thought that more people watched the games, but sometimes that happens. And not everybody can watch every game, right? Your average fan is certainly watching Red Zone. When I'm not covering a Chiefs game, I'm watching Red Zone most of the time. So like that's why I think it's important to have people like KC Sports Network who are covering this team. Genuinely, I mean this, covering this team every dang day, 24/7, breathing and sleeping and eating the entire 90-man roster and the projections that follow, right? So with all that being said, the long runway here, Seth, what was wrong with Patrick Mahomes last year?
Sure. So to give people, I think most of the people that are watchers of Only Weird Games, they know. So one of the things I've been doing for years and years, since 2014, I want to say, is I chart basically every snap that Chiefs quarterbacks take. I miss a game here and there, and that happens. And what I'm charting for, though, is not statistical stuff, because statistical analysis of quarterbacks is flawed. A gorgeous 15-yard out to the opposite hash that gets dropped is considered a worse play than a little pop pass that goes for an 80-yard touchdown. And everyone says, oh, that evens out over time. No, it doesn't. Not over the course of a full season, and not even really over the course of several seasons. Maybe over the course of a decade, sure. But, some guys play with Devontae Adams most of their career, and some guys win a Super Bowl with Juju Smith-Schuster and Sky Moore. And, there's levels to this, and it doesn't even out over time. So if you can't rely on statistical analysis, even the in-depth stats, what can you rely on? And so that's what I set out to do years and years ago. So I chart things that actually measure quarterback play. Things like plays and yards created, where when a play breaks down and he is able to escape a sack or, do something like that and, run around, find an open receiver or, scramble for a gain. That's created yardage out of thin air. It's an incredibly valuable thing. I chart something called franchise throws. I just have to give the definition. I can't define it, but you know it when you see it. And those are those throws. And most quarterbacks make one or two a game. These are like those unbelievable throws, not just off a creative platform or something, but again, that 15-yard out on a laser to the opposite hash that layers over the underneath coverage, stuff like that. I chart how many multiple read plays a quarterback makes. That's kind of from the Alex Smith era when everyone said he's always throwing to the first read. And I was like, oh, is he? Let's find out. You chart accuracy. Accuracy and completion percentage are not the same thing. You chart accuracy in the pocket, out of the pocket. And then most importantly, we're going to come back to this. I chart flushes. That's how many times was the quarterback under pressure when he hit his back foot, basically, would be a way of summing up. How many times was he under pressure in a way that actively messed with his ability to even go to that first or second read? Okay. And that's where you get created plays and yards out of. How many drops, how many yards did it cost him? Potential interceptions, because just because the defensive back dropped an easy pick doesn't mean it was a good play. We're measuring quarterback play, not stats. Missed shots, open receivers that he should have seen within the framework of the reads down the field or even shallow. Missed shots, happy feet. How many clean pockets did he bail out of? And then accuracy percentage. So here's the thing. That was a lot of words, but the point is, how did the quarterback play isolated from the rest of his team? That's what this is designed for.
Right.
So I've done that every year, Patrick Mahomes' career. Last year, I charted 15 games. I'm going to tell you two things. The first is that largely Mahomes charting by those standards, which look at what he actually did, not even the result, but what he did. Mahomes was more or less the same guy he was in 2021, 2022, and 2023. More or less. There were a few differences that we'll get into in a minute. The biggest difference is that on a per game basis, he was flushed almost 11 times per game, whereas previous years it was somewhere between 7 and 9. And someone might say, "Oh, well that's only 2 snaps per game." That's an incredible difference. 2 snaps per game in a game where you get maybe 40 to 50 dropbacks on a day, it has an incredible impact. And so
one thing to that point, Seth, not only are you being flushed 2 or 3 times more in a game, the Chiefs obviously had to change their style last year on offense, so they actually chose to limit the amount of possessions they actually had. They were one of the teams last season who had maybe 8, 9 legitimate drives that are not determined by short field, not determined by end of half, and not determined by like 2-minute drill, got to win the game. So when you're in the natural flow of the game, this team was like, in order for us to win, and part of that is because they did have a good defense last year, we only got 8, 9 possessions. So when you screw up more on average with less opportunities, that is a lot.
That is such a great way of framing that, Nate, and it's such a thing for people to remember. 11 flushes a game when you really have like fewer dropbacks than you have in previous years. Percentage-wise, it's killing a higher percentage of your plays. Yes. And as the year went along, and this will get published on the Chief of the North newsletter eventually here, because I charted on a game-by-game basis, you could see the effect it started to have on Mahomes actually relatively early in the season. Because if you remember, week 2 was the Kingsley Suamataia kind of fiasco against Trey Hendrickson.
Yes.
And you saw around that same time, Rashee Rice gets hurt a couple weeks later. Hollywood Brown doesn't come back. He loses his starting running back. That matters, guys. Even if Pacheco isn't a star, when you go from about a league average type guy to less than that, that's problematic. You could see the effect that it had on him. So something that you would see, he actually had fewer created yards per game, a little bit by about 7 or 8 yards than the year before. Part of that was fewer snaps. Part of it was they started late in the season running a lot of quick game. That ball's coming out, or it's getting thrown away, or we're doing nothing. And that's what you have to do when protection breaks down. There's this domino effect. There's this butterfly effect that just affects everything. And the way I've described it to people is last year, he ended up throwing the ball out of the pocket more because he was running for his life. And his happy feet snaps, again, bailing out of clean pockets, started rising up. Not to the point where he was even below average at it, but higher than it had been. And that's what happens when you don't trust your protection. You start to play sped up and bailing out of pockets, because as soon as you see a defender's helmet flash, you assume that they're going to win on that stunt. And there were times where, I got to bail. I got to do it quick because otherwise I'm going to get sacked. So he was playing sped up in his feet. And the problem was when Rice went down and Brown was already down and Worthy wasn't quite ready yet, he also didn't quite trust his receivers, all of them. He obviously trusted Kelce. But because of that, he was waiting a tick because he saw the look, but he didn't want to throw it to the spot because he got burned on that a few times, especially by Worthy, who, again, was a rookie that got chucked into a much bigger role than they thought. So he was playing with sped up feet and slowed down arms, for lack of a better term. And you see that in the stats that show up. But all that said, for all my charting, he was overall mostly the same guy. The circumstances around him changed. And the funny thing about all this, the thing that's almost frustrating to me, is I probably spent about 30 total hours on this because it takes a long time to accurately chart games. And you know what I came up with? You know what genius thing your film analyst came up with on trying, after 30 hours of meticulous work? The offensive line play was a problem last year at the left tackle position.
I'm glad somebody finally had the guts to say it.
Sometimes, and there's so many people that are like, well, I can see with the eye test. And so often it's wrong. In this case, it was right. I probably could have saved myself a lot of time and energy. But now I know.
Hey,
I wish I could show you my charting. I actually did it on a Excel doc this time rather than on one of these like a madman. This is just a summary. I almost did it just to bug Josh, but it takes so much time. And
now, can we get you to make a quick drive down here and hand that to Matt Nagy like he doesn't know that already?
I should. And that
Matt, I have huge news. Like a scientist in a disaster movie. It's like, like Godzilla's coming up to the water. You're like, no. I know what it was. It's the left tackle play.
Yeah, it was the left tackle play.
No, meanwhile, Godzilla has been flattening the city for like an hour.
Well, and that's the thing. The Chiefs, you want to know why the Chiefs gave Jalen Moore good money and drafted Josh Simmons? They gave him good money because they didn't know how the draft was going to go. And they said, this will never, ever happen again. We can't because bad left guard play can hurt an offensive ceiling at times and consistency at times, but you can cover that. You can slide protections. Bad left tackle play, that's tough. And so it's like we talked about the Chiefs lacking explosive plays last year. They had an above average offense by DVOA. They had an above average offense by expected points added per play. That is a borderline miracle that was basically carried on the back of Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy later in the year, and Andy Reid, and a few others who did what they could. But it's a borderline miracle, and now everyone's a little better, and I think they might have fixed it. So it's a long road to a short thought, but it's worth noting that those flush numbers changed everything about the offense.
I have no argument against the people who have said that it's no longer fun to watch the Chiefs offense. Certainly last year was a less fun version. Didn't feel like Patrick Mahomes, and certainly no Tyreek Hill. It's been a minute, but I understand if you're thinking the high flying gunslinging. Last year wasn't that, but I do think it's a good mental exercise to take all the things that you remember and perhaps hated about the Chiefs offense last year, and then think about what it would have looked like if Daniel Jones was the quarterback. If it was Carson Wentz, or just I'm like quarterback 30, or if you want it to be quarterback 15, whoever you want that to be. Think about Sam Darnold being the guy running this offense, and I think that also puts Patrick Mahomes' season in perspective. We're gonna let Nate deflate a little bit, and when we come back, I'm gonna make him talk a whole bunch about Travis Kelce.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
I'm Brett Goodwin, one of the owners of The Learning Tree. The Learning Tree is a neighborhood toy store in Prairie Village, Kansas. This has been here in this location since 2000s, and my husband Alan and I purchased the store in 2023. Alan and I grew up in families where we've always wanted to have a business together. Alan grew up, for instance, his parents had a jewelry store. I worked in a local toy store here in Prairie Village when I was growing up. When this opportunity happened in 2023, we knew right away we wanted to contact them and pursue the store. We wouldn't have been able to get the store without the team at Emprise Bank. From the day we contacted them, they knew what we needed to do, which was very helpful. I would absolutely recommend the team at Emprise Bank to anyone looking to secure a business. We worked with Emprise from day one. They were extremely helpful. They were always great resources. We talk to them frequently. They know the area. They're very friendly. We know who we're going to talk with, and they know what we need to do. We hope we'll see you at the Learning Tree.
What's good, everybody? It is Benny Heiss, KCSN betting analyst, and I just want to let you all know that it's okay. You can take a slow, deep breath. Inhale and breathe out with one word: football. You feeling it? Yeah? Did you take that in? That sweet, sweet scent of grass and pigskin in? I'm ready. I hope you're ready too, because we're going to have an absolutely awesome season once again together. And especially for all of you in the state of Missouri, get your popcorn, get your phones ready, because the wait is almost over. You can taste it. It's coming, people. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is coming. You say, show me. I say state. Later this football season, everything that you love about playing on DraftKings Sportsbook. Sides, totals, spreads, props, same game parlays, you name it. DraftKings Sportsbook is going to elevate your already great game day experience here with KCSN. And even if you don't get in by kickoff, no sweat, besides the promos on DraftKings that they offer as well. There's live in-game betting, payouts, faster than Xavier Worthy hauling down a bomb from 15 on the sidelines, all right from the comfort of your phone, wherever, whenever. You'll be betting with a top-rated sportsbook that is safe, secure, and trusted by millions of Americans across the country. Now, here's what you do. Follow your guy. You download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Be sure to use code KCSN as you get ready for sports betting to launch here in the state of Missouri. You're going to be the first in line for exclusive promos, can't miss offers, much, much more. It's code KCSN. That is KCSN in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Terms at DraftKings.com/sportsbook. Subject to regulatory licensing requirements.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about Travis Kelce, who was going to be our second topic of the day as of yesterday. And then today, a little bit of news sprinkled in. It is just buck wild that the unquestioned biggest news in the world today is that the tight end of the Kansas City Chiefs got engaged. Like, just try to telepathically send that back a decade in time. I mean, 3 years really, but like send that back to your younger self and think about the news that's like, oh man, it's like, did he marry the president or something? And actually, no, it's actually someone more famous and powerful, it appears. Nate, that was certainly not the hook of your new piece over in ESPN.com. A big season kickoff type of story about Travis Kelce, the way that he couldn't go out and the way that he would have gone out if he would have retired after last year's Super Bowl, the offseason since, and then what's to come this year. There's a ton in here. You've obviously, I'm sure, left plenty on the cutting room floor figuring out how to get the best version of this story out there.
Yes.
What is it that strung together this offseason for Kelce? What was the most interesting thing that you learned reporting the story?
Yeah, it's quite a time to have your most significant story since I joined ESPN come out today on ESPN.com. And I think the most significant thing we learned is, and we allude to this fairly high up in the story, but guys, he's only talking in a 1-year term, and he's done it consistently. And, I've been trying to prepare our Only Weird Games audience for the day that he might not run a route in a Kansas City Chiefs uniform. And so all we have is the 2025 season. And Travis has been motivated and operating as such. And so there's a number of details where, talking to a number of people in the organization, the Chiefs, no one has used, and I made this very clear in the story, guys, no one's used the R word, retirement, when it comes to Kelce, but everybody understands the significance that this might be it. And Kelce has not said at any point that he's coming back for 2026. He is only focused on this season. He rededicated himself in some ways towards his fitness, towards his craft, as he likes to say a lot, when it comes to being explosive, being a team leader. You obviously staying in connection with Patrick and Andy Reid. It's a guy who was very close to retiring, or as close to retiring as he had ever been before. A week later saying, okay, I need to tell Andy that I'm coming back. And if I'm going to do this, I got to do this the right and the best way possible. And so there's a lot of examples in the story that you can go read. Now, it just so happened that the moment this story was on the center part of ESPN.com's home page on the website, on the app, which, by the way, the new ESPN app, hope people are enjoying it. Just so happened that when everyone saw Travis Kelce, if they just typed in ESPN.com, that all hell broke loose. I want to give a big congratulations and an absolute salute and shout out to this person, right? I don't really know this person well, but I definitely wanted to retweet them. It's Chase Snyder. Shout out to Chase, who impeccably tweeted today, that was so nice of Taylor Swift to announce her engagement after Andy Reid's press conference today. A true teammate in tweet. And you know what? Yes. All of this is coordinated and organized. You have to understand, kids, that maybe, just maybe, I knew that we were in like that little 2-year window where people didn't know, or it was speculated and it hadn't become public yet, and the regular season hadn't started, but they were definitely on dates. They were definitely talking. They were definitely doing things. I just happened to know that moment. And so this does not surprise me. In fact, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift's engagement was expected. We did not know which day, but it is today, of all days, on a Tuesday before the season starts, on a Tuesday when we have to tell guys that they didn't make the team. Yeah, man. It's both surprising and not surprising if you look at it, if you read between the lines, if you talk to certain people that I got to talk to. And so, yeah, very fortunate timing. Again, it would highly encourage people to read. I think Taylor Swift is mentioned one time in the story. Is that right, Josh?
That seems right. I mean, I read
based
it
on the revisions.
I read it after a revision was clearly made. Yeah,
right.
For you guys, yeah.
Yeah. We've had some things planned in the event that this would happen, and so whenever we do get Travis, or whenever he does speak, because he's more likely to speak before Taylor on this engagement, they've been dating for 2 years, guys. So in a lot of ways, they're just like us. They've reached a certain status. They have their great careers. They're aligned. They're obviously in love, even though Andy Reid can't say the word love. And Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift in the same sentence, he will not do it. Coach, I need one quote of love. Say love. Say the 4-letter word. He won't do it. Anyway, very particular that this came out today, more than a week from the season starting. And I want people to understand that. Travis Kelce understands what is in front of him, and he wants a grand finish. And so they made their decision, which is great for them. But a lot of this work that he's done to not miss a single practice in OTAs, to not miss anything in mandatory minicamps, to not miss a single training camp practice, and to obviously look very good, look pretty spry Friday against the Chicago Bears. All of this is planned for him to be a much better version of himself in Sao Paulo and for the course of the rest of the season.
Seth, I won't make you talk any more about love because I know how much you hate that. And they're entering the confines of a loving marriage, by the way, which I feel like you should be overjoyed
always
about.
In favor of it. Always
Yes.
in favor of it.
I will say again, the scope of it is just so baffling to me in a way that I am absolutely elated by. Renee, my wife, didn't really care particularly strongly about the Chiefs before we got together, and didn't really care about Taylor Swift until Taylor Swift got into this ecosystem. I know it's an untraditional path for her. But when I saw the news, I just went out. She was downstairs, and I just went to the top of the stairs, and I just announced it like a medieval herald. And I know that's just news from the kingdom, new news from the kingdom, and the royal engagement is on. The fact that was happening. I mean, it was like 10 million likes in an hour on the Instagram post. I know that the underline of this is like Taylor Swift's very famous, but they're both very famous. And I've loved this football team since I was a baby. And the tight end of this football team is now I think internationally speaking, the most famous American football player in the world, and is now engaged to the pop star. It's just all of that is like truly, truly wild. And Seth, I'll set you up for. Also, I was going to say that it's another example that the true final test of love should be co-hosting a podcast with someone. If you can make it through a 2-hour-long podcast, you're probably good. Three of us have been podcasting for closing in on a decade now, so it's right. I need one of you guys to give me some jewelry. Honestly, I feel like I've more than earned it. But fair, Seth. We did see in Friday against the Chicago Bears on that turf at Arrowhead on the grass. Saw a little shimmy. We saw the little pivot spin and get away, and he got away. He wasn't always taking a helmet to the back of his lower back, which felt like it happened a lot last year. I know we've talked about Travis Kelce quite a bit this offseason. I know enough to know that we're all kind of optimistic about the upside of asking him to do just a little bit less, to bring down the wear and tear. In a world where Noah Gray and Robert Tonyan and maybe Jared Wiley really matter for what the most famous athlete in the sport can do. I know I'm optimistic. I know you said some horrible, horrible things about Travis Kelce at the beginning of the show, but what do you think about him in 2025?
First of all, shout out to Mike Dana because they didn't.
He saved us today. Lord, he saved us. Thank you, Mike Dana.
The funniest
he gave us some quotes, baby.
All day. The funniest tweet I saw all day came from Sam McDowell with the KC Star. Where he said, because Mike Dana was the last, I think, presser, and so the news had come out and everyone knew. He walked out and he goes, and Sam tweeted about this. Mike Dana walks out and says, "I don't know nothing, man." And that must have brought the house down.
It did.
And then of course everyone
really
proceeds to ask him. It's like, dude, I play on defense. He plays on offense. I haven't been where's Pat? Someone bring out Pat. So shout out to Mike Dana for handling stuff well.
Yes.
Congratulations to the Lovebirds. Sometimes when you know, I'll never forget texting a couple of buddies of mine that lived in another town after my first date with Jazz, and saying, guys, I'm not going to be coming back to town much anymore because if she'll have me, that's the girl I'm going to marry. Sometimes when you know. So my question to Taylor and Travis, what took so long? But whatever, that's fine. Better late than never.
We have albums to make, Seth.
That's true.
We have training to do.
He was much busier than me working part-time at a Pomida, making $6 an hour.
Travis Kelce's trying to stay in shape.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
See, these are very different
trying
things.
to get in better shape, one could argue. Yes.
So is Seth. I couldn't use that. I know Seth's out here pumping those legs.
That's right.
So, in terms of how Kelce looked, because this is our first real extended look, he's looked more explosive at training camp. He looks more like 2023 and 2022 Kelce than 2024 Kelce. And that doesn't mean, I still think he's still after he gets tackled, when he's standing up, he still looks like a dude in his mid-30s that just got tackled. Because it's oh, Lord. And that's not going to change. But he looks more spry. That shimmy you talked about, I don't think we saw that little shimmy. One of the funny things, I don't remember who, it might have been Arif Hassan, who had tweeted out once that watching Kelce for the last almost decade after the catch, it's like this weirdly graceful moose running.
Yes.
He doesn't look fast. Even honestly, his first couple of years in the league where he was out running corners and safeties,
right,
he didn't look that fast because he's a big dude. I mean, I think he's listed at 6'5". I think he might be a little taller than that. I mean, he's a tall guy.
He's I think if I had to guess legitimately, not whatever was put in the media guide, he's probably 6'6". I mean, he legitimately looks like an NBA player if you didn't know he played football.
Yes, and that really he's always been a little more wiry. He's not like this thick built guy, but he'll do these fakes, and you're like, how are these world class corners just eating dirt? Because it looks slow. But it's kind of like, speaking of Godzilla, or like the sandworms in Dune, they look like they're moving slow, but that's just because they're huge. And so maybe that's what he's got going for him. But that little shimmy in the open field to make a defender miss. How many defenders did Travis Kelce make miss last year? And I'm not blaming him for this. The man was shot. He was tired.
Not that many. Not that
I
many.
think like in the playoffs against Houston, it happened, and we were like,
Yes,
"Whoa!"
Right.
So,
That's why it popped off the screen so much. It was like, oh man, I remember that happening, and it was like, yeah, he used to do that all the time. Now, one of my favorite parts of last year, Seth, is to your point, because he was okay. Hold on. I'm gonna get up. Just you wait. I'm gonna get up.
Yeah.
Give me a minute.
Yeah.
All right. What's the down and distance? The reason why he was doing that, and what made last year so fun, is he actually became an above average player at lateraling the football, which I cannot tell you kids how hard that is to do. He got efficient at lateraling the football because it was one less hit I got to take, y'all. One less hit, and we keep the ball moving forward.
That I had not even thought about that as a reason that he's just like out here playing 3D chess, like, this 25-year-old, 210-pound safety is going to launch himself into my knees in a second.
Yep.
And I don't want that. And so, hey, there's P. Ryan. P. Ryan.
P. Ryan.
Yeah. Hey,
here's an extra 10 yards.
Yeah. Get an extra 10 yards. So he looks explosive. It was cool. Nate, your article did such a great job laying out that he really did have a very different, and by different, I mean the same as previous year's offseason regimen.
Correct.
I don't think people realize how hard these guys do have to work in the offseason to not be playing yourself into shape during the season.
Correct.
And just the burden that was placed on Kelce last year was more than I think was reasonable. It's more than what was put on him
2 years ago. Yeah.
Like in 2022, there was more help. In 2023, there was more help in the form of the defense. And the 2024 defense was solid. It just wasn't elite like 2023. So there was just so much placed on him. And every time you just get a year older. He looks spry. He's got that shimmy back. My hope is that they can control his usage in a way that makes sense. And by throwing the ball down the field more, getting, of course, Rice being back. Had Rice been healthy last year, I don't know how much of any of this we'd have been talking about, because that man was about to get targeted so many times that like Justin Jefferson would be like, that's a little excessive, isn't it? It was about to be it's like what is about to happen probably like to DK Metcalf in Pittsburgh this year, where it's like, well, I guess we'll throw to that giant guy. Like,
yep,
that's what was going to happen to Rice.
Also, Aaron Rodgers, I don't want to get hit.
Yeah, Aaron's like, boom, balls out. So I think we could see. I've been holding out hope that we could see Kelce be legitimately excellent again, and he was excellent last year. He just wasn't quite him, right? And there's a difference, and we talked about that a lot this offseason. The difference between being that's how great he's been is that he was a notch above elite.
Yes.
I'm starting to think, man, what if he had one more year like that in him? Like, what if he's always been the exception to every rule?
That's literally what he's been thinking much of these past 6 months, Seth, is what if I can, if I feel better, if I train with better intention, if I have a better recovery process, if I'm not traveling the world in support of my now fiance, and even her schedule's gotten a little more, normalized because she's gone back to her, traditional work schedule, then there's got to be something left in there. So I think you're right on it, Seth, where it's just like, if we're talking about it this way, for sure he's thought the same thing. He's not verbalized it a ton, because I think he does want to be a leader and keep it very team focused.
Yep.
But at the same time, he has to be envisioning what he did in the Super Bowl. And this is I'm glad you mentioned this, Josh. This is one of the things that did not make the story, but I think people, because things happen so fast and time moves in such an interesting way now in our society, guys, he was bleeping incredible in Super Bowl 58. Incredible. And he was god-awful in Super Bowl 59.
And that's gotta hurt.
Correct. Yes. People were wondering if he was washed because he did not look like a version of himself at all. He missed so many assignments. He was so bad. in terms of like what the game plan was. I know Patrick wasn't accurate with a lot of his passes, but he would tell you himself, I should have made 2 catches in the first half to keep drives extended, and instead we kept punting the ball away, and all of a sudden a 10-point deficit became a 17-point deficit, and now the game plan's immediately shot.
Yep.
He did not have a catch in the first half of the Super Bowl. So one of the things we couldn't really save or keep in the story was just how great he was the Super Bowl before in comparison and in quite the contrast to how bad he was in last year's Super Bowl.
One thing to stitch us back into the conversation about Patrick Mahomes last year. With all that being said, Travis Kelce was the leading receiver on this team last year by 185 yards. And then it was Xavier Worthy, and then it was another drop to DeAndre Hopkins, who was on the team for 10 games, and then Noah Gray, tight end 2. Then Samaje Perine and Justin Watson at 5 and 6. If you want to revisit the supporting
and they
cast,
made the Super Bowl.
They lost one regular season game that they were trying to win. Truly a bonkers year to look back on a variety of levels. Well, I really thought we were going to go, oh, man, we don't have enough time to talk about the roster cuts because we're nearing the end of the show, and we don't have them yet. So here's what I want to do real quick. I think right now we are in the 70s in terms of the Chiefs' remaining rosters. They have to get down to 53 or have already done it by league standards, just hasn't all made it out yet.
Correct. Yeah.
There are a couple that are out there that it would be kind of surprising, and we have to see. Things we do know real quick. I think the few of these that meet the quick discussion threshold here. Carson Steele waived, not terribly surprising, but worth noting. The offensive lineman, Shu Godric, he's the international pathway player, so he can be their 17th practice squad guy. CJ Hansen, 7th round draft pick last year. And Esapole, who we were kind of excited about as a developmental tackle. He's getting waived, and we'll see if he makes it back to the practice squad. The 2 veterans, I think, are interesting. Both Marlon Tuipulotu, the defensive tackle, because it seems like a corresponding move with Derrick Nnadi. I believe Fabian Lovett actually doesn't have an official one yet. Thumbs up, thumbs down. But the defensive tackle beef one tech section of the roster was looking kind of thin, so the Chiefs do a late pick swap, very similar to the Sky Moore pick swap, to acquire Derrick Nnadi from the New York Jets. Kind of curious because the Jets traded for 2 defensive tackles. I texted you guys on Wednesday about how much I was looking forward to the Derrick Nnadi return press conference, and then a few days later, he was on his way back. Maybe the Chiefs were afraid the Jets had another trade partner who's going to give them more for Derrick Nnadi. I don't know.
I don't know.
Obviously, they let him walk this offseason and kept Tuipulotu and Lovett around to kind of step into that spot. And then Mike Edwards, we say a lot, or I've said a lot. I think first day of training camp, I think we could probably get you 45 of the players on the 53-man roster. And I think the one that I would have been wrong about would have been Mike Edwards. Not as big of a surprise after seeing his training camp and preseason. Just was not covering space very well, it didn't seem like. So Mike Edwards also let go, leaving a very, very young safety group. Each of you guys, Nate, you go first here, but any of those really catch your eye? Find any of those particularly interesting, or any players that have been reported to make the team that you think is worth noting here?
So, yeah, let's go real quick. I think you want Mike Edwards back because he can become your version of Tree Rollins. Remember, the team does not have Justin Reed anymore, right? They still, I think, need a veteran in the defensive back room to help out with Dave Merritt, who's obviously an excellent coach. But Tree Rollins, kids, if you don't remember back in the day, used to be a coach/player for the Orlando Magic, which means he played a little bit, but he was largely an assistant coach. That's what Mike Edwards could be. Esapole was the biggest surprise to me because I think Derrick Nnadi may actually change the math. Before Derrick Nnadi's trade on Sunday, I thought 10 offensive linemen, 9 defensive linemen. With Derrick Nnadi back on the roster, there is an argument to be made, and again, we don't know quite for sure yet, if you could do 10 defensive linemen, 9 offensive linemen. So that may be where the cutting line was based on that decision that they made in the hopes of getting Pole to come back to the practice squad. I know they want Carson Steele for his fullback and special teams purposes, but other teams might give him a look, and I think he's probably the most interesting character right now who could be plucked away with another team. I know someone said in the comments that Carson Steele was designed, Levi, Carson Steele was built in a lab to be a Green Bay Packer.
That's
You're not
good.
wrong.
I was thinking about Dan Campbell actually, but that's the right division for sure.
Hey,
he can be a Viking too.
Have a bake off for Carson Steele, guys. Have a waiver wire bake off. So as far as what we know right now, linebackers is a little bit interesting because you could have 6 linebackers. Some years they've gone to 5, but I think they're going to go to 6 this year. I think Robert Tunyon's on the team, but I haven't heard that.
Right.
Now, I want to remind guys, children, ladies and gentlemen, they could call Robert Tonyan in right now and say, look, we released you. Hand me your phone. See you Thursday. Or see you Wednesday. Once we make a corresponding move, once the initial 53-man roster is set. The same could be said for Mike Pennell, right? Hey, maybe we still want to keep 9 defensive linemen, but our most veteran guy is the guy who's going to hand us his phone, and then we're going to call his agent and say, stop it. See you on Wednesday or Thursday, depending on whatever corresponding move we have to make. Don't leave your house, and if someone comes to your house, don't answer the door unless it's us in a Chiefs polo. So I know that we always have to, I think, do a PSA about the initial 53-man roster is not actually the 53-man roster. It's just what you can get away with so that you can retain as much talent as you can for the practice squad, which if you remember, kids, based on how many injuries the Chiefs had last year, kind of need quality players on the practice squad too.
I haven't seen anything that surprised me so far. I think obviously the tackle situation, I mean, that's the one that people have been fired up the most about. I would just say this. Looking good, and how do you say his last name again?
Pole?
Pole?
All right. Because I know it's not Pole.
So according to Pro Football Reference's website, is what I've been going off of for a while.
Issa Pole, which again, I should have learned that before now, so I feel ridiculous, so I'm sorry.
Well, currently he's not on the team, so
it's hard to make the roster. Looking good against third stringers is just a different animal, and it's hard to make the roster when you've already got a swing tackle in Jalen Moore, and then the other guy's Wanya Morris. And I know a lot of people. I had a bunch of people like, "Oh, well, he's a better bet than Wanya Morris," and I would just say, Wanya Morris is a guy who you can start a game or two, and be fine,
and was
you
a
can't
draft
start
pick.
him. You can't start him 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games, but you can start him a couple games and be fine. You can go to him mid-game and be fine, especially at right tackle. You have any idea how hard it is to find guys that have proven that?
Yes, because we watched it last year as they failed to do that.
Yeah, if the Chiefs cut Wanya Morris today, his agent would have 10 calls by the end of the day. And I know people don't believe that, but I'm telling you, you follow the Chiefs so closely. Look at the state of offensive line in the league. There are places where Wanya Morris would be a fringe
He would
starter.
be a member of the Tennessee Titans.
Yes.
By Thursday.
They'd be calling and be like, please come play right tackle. Please.
Correct.
Correct. That's the thing. Like, people remember like the Raiders game last year was really rough, but they don't remember a couple games previous where he played fine. And that's life as a slightly below average or as a solid backup NFL tackle. That's life. People will only remember where you struggled, and you will eventually if you're in there as a starter, because you're not supposed to be starting long term. And that's something that I think is worth remembering. I think
That's
Carson
such
Steele
a good
was always
point.
Carson Steele was always inevitable. I think, and Nate's been hinting at certain things. It seems like Rashard Smith has started to earn some looks, and that'll be really interesting moving forward. And so I haven't really been surprised so far. Again, because the Chiefs do this every year. Man, I love cheering for the Chiefs, and I love analyzing the Chiefs, writing about them. I don't like what they do every year. The Raiders have released their cutdown.
Exactly. Great franchises wait till Roger Goodell shows up at their facilities and says, "Give me the 53. We're vacating wins."
We're trying to be first in the league with championships and 32nd and telling you who's on the team.
Yep. And
I'll
so
tell you what,
we'll
it would
see.
require some pretty strong glass for us to throw stones at the Chiefs about time management as we roll well over the hour mark of this edition of Only Weird Games. I have two other quick things to mention. They've already been announced, but if you are just maybe not on social media, which is something I generally support as a lifestyle, you need to know what else we're doing very soon on KCSN, because starting September 1st, every Monday and Friday, you're getting what everybody in the chat's always asking for: more of me. Everything else with Joshua Brisco, noon to 1, the exact same places you get your KCSN video content streaming on the KCSN YouTube channel. It'll be podcasted as well. It's a very exciting thing for me because it feels like kind of a spiritual sequel to the things that I've had the most fun doing. And the only person who could possibly be producing it as the one producing and co-hosting and being all over the show, Tucker D. Franklin. And the D stands for doing his own show too. That's right, KCSN Live. You're going,
let's go!
What's happening in the noon to 1 window, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday? You're getting
right.
3 beautiful standalone hours of Tucker D. Franklin, who is going to be there. And I'll frankly let him tell you himself. Check out, we had very fun announcement videos.
Yes,
Tucker did all the work of. I did very little, but I enjoyed mine very much. Check those out on Twitter and Blue Sky and Instagram. They're in all those places. On Threads, I put it everywhere I could find. I activated a MySpace account to tell you about everything else with Joshua Brisco. A new show beginning September 1st right here on KC Sports Network. So I'm very excited for that. I know Tucker is very excited for both of those shows, and I think it's going to be a great time. So I wanted to announce that and give you at least a little bit of feedback. I'll keep talking about it more as we go, and then we get going next week as the regular season will be coming up for us. So with all of that done, another mega edition of the show, and we have more to talk about with the Chiefs offensive line, and we're going to have enough time, I think, to do most of it before they have to head to Brazil to kick things off against the Los Angeles Chargers. But Nate, that does it for this episode. I don't always just address Nate. Here's the thing, if you're new. So I'm Joshua Brisco. I've been talking. Seth Keysor is the other one who's been talking about all the nerd stuff or whatever. And then at the end, Nate Taylor gets us out of here.
Now, for anyone new, you might not know this looking at the middle of your screen or listening earlier, but Seth is a pastor. Seth is a man of the Lord, okay? And look, I know people have suggested this, and I completely agree. In the chat, here we go, guys. Now, look, I'm going to take a estimated guess. Not a prediction, a projection, as we like to say, Josh. Most NFL players, as you well know, ladies and gentlemen, get married in the offseason. Now, some of them get married in April if they live in Buffalo and they want to get the hell out of Buffalo, get somewhere warm, okay? Some do it in April. Hey, right before the draft, just so I can know what's going on with the employer that I work for, right? What they do in the draft. Maybe not have your wedding during draft week. And then some, perhaps the best, those with the most money, those with the most star power, with the spotlight always on them, they get married in May. Now, my bold projection is that between now and the day after the draft, hello, how you doing? We have to get Seth Keysor in a room with Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift so that he can say, look, I know y'all been looking at them highfalutin officiants, okay? I'm one of y'all, okay? I know what the Lord wants for you all, and the Lord wants for me to be the one to address you biblically. What it's going to be like to be in the loving arms and to be comforted in a marriage, right? So, whatever it takes, we got to get Seth to Arrowhead Stadium. I mean, he's going to be here at Arrowhead Stadium later this season, and we got to get Seth somehow smuggled into the locker room or where the family area is outside the locker room and say, now look, Travis, I know you're quite busy, and Taylor, thank you for coming again. I just want to introduce you to Seth Keysor, who will officiate your wedding June 2026. Go ahead, Seth. Make your pitch now.
Well, I mean, the first thing that they would know is that I would apologize to Travis for saying he was fat. So, which absolutely didn't happen, by the way. No, wait.
Also worth noting, I got ordained online, so I actually am available to be kind of the Gardner Minshew to Seth's Patrick Mahomes if necessary.